For indictment now are hyper-defined to cause no headaches, unshackling your minds. Minds! Campus Marcius calls you through the blinds. Blinds. Good night. Another short YouTube video. YouTube short by Anthony Wall, a.k.a. Romulus Wall. Your Republic returns. Your Republic's Campus Marcius. Learn who learns. WFSB, NBC Connecticut News. Please detach me from the fake words you attached me to and others about the World Trade Center too. Fake ties to others. With the news articles you did. You also did that with a child offending principle proven, but it was more and worse recorded then. They made you make up the fake emails, and they made that as while they were to replace what was actually with over the phone, and a whole bunch of messages, confessions, and statements and relevant with what was also with that campus sustained, where and how they have juxtaposed natures of organized crime and of distinct natures of child abuse, coordinated on and off campuses, even down to uses of people that aren't in the same classrooms for where and how one of the things that they are commonly, besides sequence shifts and exploitations of what is simultaneous, and remote uses of that is identity thefts and frauds and slanders that are connected, also intercities. These are people on and off the colleges and universities, on and off medical campuses, fire campuses, involved as victim predators since founding. They can't defend themselves. And what they did with offensive evidence perception, racketeering, even data racketeering, even what people hear and say, their sense and sensibilities and are relevant to questions like why slavery was in America since before our founding parents were even born. Because it was sickly distinctly against everyone, and they sustained that to keep everyone blaming, engineered, reliant upon everyone else too, blaming other things, others, ourselves, for what nature was demonstrating as that identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself, as that value of that value/value progression, no longer native pure. And that is per the definition of native. That came from before. Sciences became criminally foreign influenced. It is most probable and practical, and it is necessary to convict and to opine, and or to counter-convict and to counter-opine about opinion and theorize about. In other words, through time, the databases, relationships, therefore to all identity of the ground locations, therefore sequence relationship instances. They're making people, the media has people pretending they need privacy because of how they were abused for what is uses of the juxtaposed natures of it. Because simultaneously, increasingly, insidious natures of positive and negative treatments and collusion were all identity of the ground locations relevant to where and how there is proverbial short-circuiting, where and how correlation nature has means to speak that are hyper-evidential, that people are pretending they don't understand. And with their time treatments, using time all simultaneously, too fast, too slow, different roles with different natures of and methods of wire crimes and uses of them with this. These are people that made exceptions of me knowing them, that have connections between them, and they're pretending since they were kids. Their roles with three branches of government and as people also overtly with a whole bunch of different countries kept criminally foreign influence. And the same thing goes on there too. There is complete remote possession of that stupid theater that pretends it can't discern that and how a predicate acts delivery system method and or a breaching method was what would cause slavery. And that we had to have a constitution unabridged. But all the ways to abridge it were already entrenched and forced what were roles with it. Everyone was enslaved, sickly, distinctly. Everyone was forced to entertain syntax treatments, therefore functions, increasingly, that needed to blame the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, action, nature, other things other than ourselves. You can't legalize criminal insidiousness. You could legalize it. We know that. And you could criminalize it too. I mean, in other words, it's not over. Pretending that the Civil War isn't just about slavery. It's about overcoming that torture that was with it simultaneously, because there was an agenda beyond that, and it was hiding behind the agenda. Like everyone in that contained volume as fact treatment nature as volume. They had, in other words, they're gonna every instant they're gonna make positive and negative treatments. They're not gonna do it as a quality of fact treatment nature. They're saying, but this is relative to the breaching method. It was against the law to do that. If anyone found out people were doing that, in other words, a maintenance to the sense and sensibility, use Jane Austen's phrase, of individuals, of groups. Every individual's group, forced group, and of species. When humanity is in a positive value nature progression, we value the individual first, finite. See, more and more, we value, and everyone's valuing and been valuing since ancient times, group individual rights and narratives by species, volume, science /s that are forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading, and just stealing people to fake words, roles outside of courts. WFSB attached me to fake words, with NBC attached me to fake emails. These are people with people next to their buildings. There's former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts with people associated with Mr. Abruzzi and the principles and uses of their kids' sense and sensibilities as roles with people on the child abuse registry. They also had roles of predicate acts and wrongdoing with various natures of courts and people that run the prisons and where they went to colleges, interstates and intercities in Connecticut. They have, by having the breaching method had syntactically all identity of the ground locations, areas, and states. Criminally foreign influence, uses of criminally foreign influence, premises treatments, sequence treatments, identity treatments. Also where that is evidential and hyper-evidential, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously too, and differentially, is inside, is recorded. But see, we can't get the mandated law followed at locations because the locations of the three branches of government and of all private that tied to them, even unrelated because it's not connected by them. Even when it is, all that is used remotely. This per method that was sophistication here before our founders. When people make opinions about culture or color, they leave out, not by accident. And there's evidence how they leave out their opinions, leave out and left out how our founding parents were forced to entertain and speak words and entertain theaters of positive and negative treatments that couldn't be entertained, and the country defended at the same time. See, it left out what was entrenched, how it was entrenched, and how it worked. And see, nature will demonstrate to us how it worked. The same way someone could press sine, cosine, or tangent on a computer, on a calculator, and get a answer relative to a right-hand triangles. Relativity to such functions, for example, that are sequence nature that put only part of the complete identity of physics first and only simultaneously. And in other words, so the souls of countless people, they want to have the real causes of the worst predicate acts, in fact, chiefly nature-oriented ones, relative to where and how it is recorded. One can't get help from in either of the branches of government properly because of their roles with all locations, areas, and states, all things employed as arrays, fighting with each other and are not, and in other words, employed that to fight with each other. Not, you know, it was and is per a method that's way worse than divide and conquer. It's divide and maintain, blaming roles, blaming other things, others, and ourselves. What its function causes, and already caused, and it already caused, blamed on other things, others, and self. So what's doing it now is increasingly valuing precedents and statutes having been read with criminally foreign influences, and consciously exploiting exceptions and exception nature. It's increasingly valuing all the exceptions and exception nature that the breaching method effectively maintained all bodies individually grouped and together. Self-valuing having been set up and setting them up to get over our individuals, to keep the finite from being used by any group, to get over on groups and through ourselves. You know how many black people say they don't want to we're supposed to be able to, they're forcing people to fight, and or in other words, they're using things like racism with physical delusions and with criminally foreign influence premises treatments, and the causes of that, for example, blamed on other things, others, and or on selves. And this is where and how the three branches of government individually grouped and together, they've been using such, because to hide where and how a breaching method measures and maintains countries in A through Z, individually grouped and together. It maintains them measured pseudo-sophistication and hyper-pseudo-sophistication, and both increasingly self-valuing that having been since ancient times. So where and how the delusions are juxtaposed with criminally foreign influence premises treatments regarding countries, regarding history. No, always with music. And people don't see, this is where victims defend motivations, where they're true, they're being honest. Oh, we were really just putting more music because we wanted to make our presentation better. They're needing to self-value sequence shifts They're needing to self-value all that's been reliant upon each age of fact treatment nature, theater, positive and negative treatments that are used not only every time it's formally, that conjoins to where, people hurt people and help people simultaneously in collusion with that where and how. What is actually recorded. People are blaming other things, others, and or ourselves for that breaching method that had those crazy laws set up in America. And one of the ways they're getting away with doing it, stylistically, because nature forces that, is by maintenance to roles self-valued with that which was at all locations. Collusion with that which is causing negative value nature progressions, action natures, and that was sustained to make nature's demonstrations of that collusion. Now through all kinds of other things, true. Motivations, nature's needs, interests. So it's truths used for lies, though. I mean, in other words, it's complete lies. Like, their motivations were greed and things like that. Their motivations because they have to try to make positive and negative treatments, positive value nature progressions, the only way that system allowed was to make exceptions. In other words, that were also in the furtherance of what was causing negative value nature progressions. So they would make theater people, and they would say, oh, well, so the branches of government were not only used and are not only used remotely, through criminal foreign influence, remote possession of their individuals grouped in together, each group branch of government, but also grouped. And they are recorded / hyper-recorded manifest this way. As victims, well, in other words, even if it was made up, witch trials, we know to an extent it was made up. And the motivations of it, who would make that up? You see, that's invisible but still discernible, but even that is not what we have to use, like in math. In other words, we're using the identity that the scientists share. If you follow my videos, so there's a hyper function that is nature's identity itself, and it is only increasing. So there is a hyper functional, better than a computer, more finite than a computer, while as a computer it's value that is present anywhere anybody is present. And it is its own presence also distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously as the ground. So it is invisible but still discernible. And from, or to, from, as, with, and for that. While being that, it is making more of itself. It is a hypergenesis. And then it is a genesis. And it is the completion of that, which is Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneously difference to the rest of space nature. And note where 3 years can demonstrate the consciousness, the quality of our diffusion as 1/3/5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature that cannot be and stay. Its identity of positive unto itself, as itself, in all three, unless we do it. Unless we coordinate and try to do it by what is positive to the 5 discernible. identities of sequence slash the simultaneous nature that are bound to, and as its hyper simultaneous nature as a scientific value, nothing theorized, that which can be observed. See, this is called quality of fact-achieving nature. This is a quality of, for example, this is theory, but this is also science, what I'm about to say. Criminal insidiousness is an identity of the ground, identity of relationship to itself, value, and slash value progression. But I place the slash equaling a quality of diffusion. That also is why and how, for example, there is the value of what is greater than all that can be discerned and or realized all at once, and while simultaneously realizing how grouped things are, simultaneous natures slash sequence natures too. This is observation of how everything at once is a sequence slash simultaneous nature. And this is where how every little finite individual, see, this is why we are individual grouped in species. This is why we are these 3 volumes. This is why and how. Fake branches bow to find the seed they next must fall. They forged as yet were fake. So our founders can't tell no lies. They wanted and needed us to value and understand that and how their extortion, their enslavement, the enslavement of their soul's actual words, their enslavement of the concept, the value as nature slash as nature as value slash nature value as nature simultaneously, because there is a hyper simultaneous nature. Only the extent of it is debatable. And who debates that? For example, it's the value of being able to discern the difference between a species as an identity of volume, distinctly from why and how there is groups in that. There is ages, there is areas. I mean, there are ages, areas, sexes, differences, invisible but still discernible is what the ancients revealed. So there is a way to discern who's lying. It's not about who's lying or not, because even that is invisible but still discernible. The only way you can really know is by using a quality of fact-achieving nature that uses this science. That is where and how there are no exceptions. The value of where and how it is exceptions as 5 temporary manifest, and as 3 simultaneously temporary manifest. It is also only because of the simultaneous value of that, and is also where and how it is only increasing as volume slash S. We are making more of forever's body. It will only stay positive onto all parts of itself, the same way an identity stays positive onto itself, even though it is, all positive and negative. You want to stay positive as identity. See, but now identities are in that trap. No one spoke for this human volumes science, volume slash S science, as its identity of volume. No one spoke for the identity of species, function, per correlation nature, slash hypercorrelation, because it would have revealed it will reveal treatments by the quality of the nature of the law, the value of the nature of the law, the value of sequence. That would have revealed originally, and still, this was sophistication before modern nations, has complete remote possession over their narratives by justifications of all identity ground. Since before cars, that which forced slavery sickly distinctly in the North and in the South, that which recorded consciously, effectively maintained people blaming other things, others, or selves, even when correctly. Like, oh, England did slavery in this colony. These people did slavery in this colony. And that was all, people go on and they play that out. They can't play it out with correlation natures. They can't use the protraction of correlation natures actually inherent active and progressive means. People, no matter where they are, we're individual, grouped, and together. Was this play? It maintained. So we have the phenomenon of manifest in hundreds of nations at once, all kinds of jobs, all kinds of income sources, all kinds of means to positive value nature progressions that are employed. Thank God, by the breaching method that hurts everyone too. It's everyone's self-values roles, even when correctly blaming things, like whatever motivations they could blame. Like money for slavery, that wasn't the causes of it. In other words, they say, oh, war. And we need to, as a species, define war with bombs distinctly from war. We need to define that as hyper war while we're placing this hyper indictment. So we'll enable. We have to realize what is actually recorded, how it was actually recorded, how they backed the theater reactions of each individual as each branch of a government stewards, and all exceptions and exception nature tied to them. It is recorded how their leaderships were also kept victim predators. So we have to refer to them as predators. Can't just refer to them as predators in relationship to the breaching because they want to debate things, but then they can't defend their identities and their quality. Also delusions rot. And if you say that, then they're going to say, "Oh, well, you said I was delusional." They have to value fake things already in databases. This is a completely connected through all bunch of things further, on off campuses, on off private database relationships simultaneously, method grouped as one body of method. And that was only for, and is only for, to keep all those interests in collusion with worse at all locations first. And this is where and how we are syntax nature. This is how we are picking up and using the identity of the ground. Locations. When we are using other people's names. NBC, Connecticut News, WFSB, they're going to be indicted if they don't follow the law here and fix the fake words they attach me and others to. There are people pretending they want privacy because they need to pretend they knew me in the past. They need to hide their roles. The Wethersfield police chief and his family, foreign and domestic, is involved intercities with a Fred Grisette, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with abuses of boys and girls on and off the campuses with a whole bunch of people on and off Central Connecticut State University, tied to former director of the FBI, involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, including the WFSB, NBC, Connecticut News, Fox, Connecticut News. There are 2 Mendez police that are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with identity thefts, falsified police reports, wire crimes, switching names roles, with interbranch locations, intercities locations next to the Fox Connecticut News, also with the Domain family, also with people on all sides of that park, or three sides of that park, near a house they said was theirs one time. They used that as an exception to pretend they knew me. And with people that were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts and identity thefts and frauds, instances, roles on and off other campuses I went to, even a campus I only went to 1 year and then it closed. There are a whole bunch of houses next to there tied to a Joe DeMauro and a John DeMauro and a Paul DeMauro. I only met one time. Only spoke to him over the phone. It was over the phone. I spoke to him only one time. They're involved with Wethersfield Police since I was a kid, and with their other neighbors, and with sexual circles, and with people I never saw them around Fred Grisey in my life. These are all Fred Grisey also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with them roles on and off Trinity College and CCSU, with setting up exceptions, pretending that they know me. Also with Eric Olson and Matt Olson. I don't know them. And these are people with Facebook pages, interbranch, that have been pretending other. They were involved with on and off the Southstein Middle School. I never had a class with them. And with the Mendez police. These are police forms that have to do with foreign and domestic. There was also there are the roles with Korean places. There are Korean people associated with the DeMauros. And with a Della Fera family that has judges and prosecutors through time involved on and off campuses with identity thefts and frauds, with drugs and medicines crimes, and with sexual circles and roles with distinct natures of abuses of the boys and girls, and remote uses of everyone trying to want and say they need privacy, as people that are in the background using other people's names they don't even know. Because they're trying to pretend things about the passions and emotions of other. They're trying to embarrass and slander people, and then pretend it. Look, see, that's an evidence. You have some sick fakes that are only capable of being since founding. They came their child abused. If they want to be addressed as victims, then they have to follow mandated law. It will show where and how they couldn't, because they already painted themselves roles, and as nature's used to fabricate audio and video. Our courts and our police forms have been fabricating audio and video. They have been kept needing to do so because of the other nations that are checking each other here for whatever, apparently. That's a theory. But, that's because they have all these countries that were involved with the World Trade Center attack also having been coordinated intercities instances to pretending they know me. So, and there are police and people associated with the police on Facebook and interbranch who demonstrated roles of predicate acts, identity thefts, and fraud. They said Mike Roberts, which they set him up, used him to make exceptions to pretend he knew me, sequence shift roles with judges and prosecutors, and with police forms associated with the people that are criminally foreign influence with a whole bunch of countries all along Route 3 through time. There are also houses on and uses of them and their neighbors through time, like on Hangdog Lane, involved with sequence shifts, identity thefts and frauds, roles, and where they make instances where they can ask people questions about things in cases, but they know and maintain that they do that to hide what is a trinity with, where, for example, exceptions and exception nature come with where they have A-B answers. Not everything is A-B. And that's relevant, too, again, to where and how we have the physical delusions recorded standing, juxtaposed simultaneously with two more. We have the relevant with the criminally foreign influence, fact-cheap nature qualities, and we have the sequence nature that included with that, and I lost my place. Well, no one's watching my videos because I think they're too long, but you guys have to listen. Boxing is strong. All we have to do is use mandated law outside of courts. So the MSNBC, CNN also has sources involved with the courts, involved with their treatments of Paul Manafort and of Steve Bannon for his uses too of a phrase posse, because there is a Subby Bajerio who's involved with former director of the FBI's co-defendants and like a whole bunch of other people, 8 countries. He pretended the only words I ever had with him wasn't even words. I said, yeah, and I bought a coat from him. And that was evidence. In other words, these are people that were offensively recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people with all kinds of Justice Department and these are people that are criminally foreign influence, a whole bunch of other countries, identity theft, fraud cliques that are involved on and off campuses, hiding lie progressions from the other campuses. They never see people on. These are people I never saw on campus. I never saw Subby Bajerio on a campus in my life. There was one exception. I didn't even see him that night. In other words. So these are people further involved with the principal child abuser school. Now they have their kids involved with this. These are people that have their kids now. Everyone's speaking to others in the past. And they have roles of falsified police reports through time. Now these are people that have been falsifying police reports and switching names of arresting officers, making all kinds of excuses for it, switching sequences with that, and preventing anything to respond to in writing this way, because all the narratives changed and the names changed. So they confessed, and in other words, all kinds of things, and demonstrated all kinds of things. If someone shuts the door, if someone slams the door shut, that means there's a door frame. If someone slams the door, maybe it means they just slammed it on some door that was in a junkyard, on the ground, or in a driveway. But in other words, for example, True Always, even over the phone, they've been replacing phone records with fabricated audio and video because they got caught up with the uses of the right to lie, but they didn't and don't have the right to lie. And so there's a guy who sought me out with a whole bunch of people who sought me out with a Taekwondo place. And then after that, during that, the guy sought me out. The guy says, Joe DeMoro told me he wanted to see me with a Taekwondo place on the South Steen Highway when I was in high school. I never had a class with John DeMoro in my life. He was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with what I said. In other words, I had to write a complaint about a Judge Smith. Then I found out there were more judges, male and female. They're also lying to a female judge who's black. I don't know about the other female, to extent they're lying to all of them, but they also have all the judges' self-valuing roles with such valuing roles with it. For example, they have prosecutors and other identities of positions with the courts that also, when they grew up, they were involved with people I barely know. And I only know them from brief instances where they were trying to pretend to know me. And they knew me in instances before that. It's something to do also as their roles with all along hangdog and their uses of the corners of the street. Are people involved with identity thefts and frauds, sequence shifts with like a Maria Vizino and a Steven Stocco, intercities involved with CCSU, and people on and off the state judicial branch offices, and the Weathersfield Pizza there. Involved also on and off Hangdog Lane, where that runs into, I mean, involved also with two-route highway and the streets that run perpendicular and parallel from that, where, in other words, two-route highway turns into hangdog lane. They also have employed the sense and sensibilities of people pretending they want privacy. For example, because the only reason I'm talking about this, I want, and they're lying about what I want. They're saying, well, this is evidence. Well, if you wanted privacy, why would you be speaking about it? I'm not the one that brought their names up. I don't know this Fred Grisey, and I showed this to the school. He's involved with people, they have the corners of the schools involved through time. They have all sides of the high school, and they have people with the middle school. There's a Dr. Graham. There's a guy named Bob Chase. There are people with forensics locations that are also through time involved with the same families that have recorded a whole bunch of different ways, confessed, then confronted themselves, involved with overt criminal enterprises, relevant to their roles with wire crimes and mail crimes that they don't know about and that they self-value though. Because they're being, because in other words, what's actually recorded. These are people that from my grammar school that are involved with the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones in the slant that are connected. Even on Facebook, this is recorded. See that? So they've been using Facebook. They're making their maintenance to a whole bunch of knaves, pretending that they could speak for sophistication or for non-sophistication. The whole arrays of opinions. Everyone's preventing mandated law. You know, I don't need theme music under me. I would rather have time to do that too. In other words, but that's only being used to make. In other words, you can't do that. In other words, they're offensively needing people where nature is a value by the law. We're going to be speaking about criminal and citizen's nature if we're speaking about what caused slavery. Otherwise, we're not speaking about it correctly, are we? So, no, why have people not have been speaking about it correctly? You see what I'm saying? Because they're lying about what they believe about audiences, for example. Why would they be motivated by it? Why would the January 6th Commission be motivated, for example, to self-value roles, people attacking the Capitol? Because the lawyers, as an identity of sophistication, for example, that's visible but still discernible. And that's relevant because there is a hyper-invisible but still discernible juxtaposed with that. And how it is discernible is per how it is not just three natures bound, but how grouped too. So two of them where it is nature is value. And one of them is more, it is simultaneously value as nature. But where and how that is differentially, one of them is more nature as value / value as nature. The notes of music are bound this way, relative to the sound, relative to that which is inherent to all things, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, so we can discern this. So we could discern that criminal and citizen's natures, like criminally legalized governments in collusion with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and so forth, they made positive treatments that using things you people could say are, oh, this is positive or negative, but they attach to it, they use it as lies. We know that truths can be used for lies. We know that overt lies can be used as lies, but where everyone's forced to entertain them as truths. Like, well, that's reality. You know, rolls with that method by the end of the whip. You don't bring that up unless you're going to be honest about it, or about you're hiding it from it. See, we have people that want to hide from serious topics because they're in collusion with the people who want to treat the serious topics with passions and emotions so they could lie about passions and emotions, and with physical delusions. And then we're going to be fighting with strangers. You need to follow mandated law. You have to. Then they want to debate us using fake things and fake in databases, and or role self-valuing that being and having been coordinated with illusions spoken and things. Then people repeat that. So there are men and women who recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that there are houses near me. That there's a Joshua Stryker. I never had a conversation with Joshua Stryker in my life, and Eric Oliveri and others made all these confessions. There was just Eric Oliveri, Joshua Stryker, and his brother were outside of his house, and during the day though, they had made there was one of the only time. One of the only times I had communication with Mike Roberts, besides and with that job on the Berlin Turnpike. This is with DACA, which is also involved with the police forms of interstates, which is relevant to where it is also there is what is relevant. That we have to define 5 bodies of criminal insidiousness nature, better than the knave as actually recorded people who counter things like predicate acts and criminal insidiousness. They painted themselves incapable of defending themselves and of affording what is actually capable of being discerned at all locations, areas, and states. See, this is a coordinated. We're going to observe it as a 5/15. We'll observe it as a 1/3 branches of government and exception nature. So we're going to have 3/1/3/5 because they all have to share an identity too, and that identity as a scientific value is present in our syntax nature, where in its increasing value, so its value progressions value is there. And remember, there are 2 distinct identities of invisible but still discernible. That is the hyper-invisible but still discernible. And it is the invisible but still discernible. Learnable, learn. Boxing's not once, but turn and turn. But by the rules. See, war. So the ancients knew how to cause positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. They knew how to fight where even if people lose, I'll win. Evolution, science, real only feels like games. They don't fake sides. It's to sense something. In other words, the languages have a better than living, the alphabet, the sounds are manifest with a better than living identity of relationship to themselves, the letters of the English alphabet and the letters of other alphabets, and it's the same body they are, that species body, that individual body. Because one identity of hyper-simultaneous is making more of itself. People could debate, they could take positions. Scientifically, if it's a whole bunch of them, but then that goes away, because then how could you discern the difference between when there are a whole bunch of them at once grouped, and we know there's everything at once. We know we can discern things as grouped, and we know we can discern the finite, smallest detail. See, this is because there is the value of the small details, the value progression. One identity of forever nature is of an integrity. It has an integrity that is only increasing complete hyper possession / hyper possession over itself as existence / space. Boxings. It gives us grace. To shadow box, we heard that one. And in the boxing ring, it's by the rules. And both agree. So, two can remain fun for everyone. It can be because that's not what makes it fun. What makes it fun, for example, there's a difference between freedom of speech and pretending to be for free speech, while by not being for it and being in the furtherance of sabotage of it by pretending to be for freedom of expression. So people can't defend themselves in relation to in relationship to the people with the passions and emotions relevant to the distinct natures of possession over the theater narratives and natures by the arts, and as the arts voices. For example, where even the English arts, part of the English science is where, so in other words, it is valuable, it is positive. That is not making a positive out of negative. It is a form of positive that is also making more positive that is also positive unto itself. That is that which is already complete possession over all that is positive and negative to itself simultaneously. The simultaneous nature, the hyper-simultaneous nature that is distinct from, while as the other three volumes. For example, as ours, individually grouped in together species identity of volume /S inside the rest of the invisible but still discernible quality of diffusion as life, making more than just energy, making more and more forever nature. Only the extent of it is debatable. And not even in math, it's debatable. See, the only reason they get away with debating things that are not debatable is because mandated law is not followed outside of courts. And the sequence is not followed outside of courts. And uses of that identity possession of each branch of government, because that's what's actually recorded. Like, for example, there's a Debbie Gold, and Ali Gold, I never saw him anywhere in my life. There's a Debbie Gold, I only know her because she was influenced to roles with her father, a mayor of Gold, with others, a whole bunch of people tied to him, on and off Central Connecticut State University, on and off Trinity College, involved with predicate acts, putting all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes and sexual crimes roles, if they know about it or not. Because in other words, these are people that do bad things, they don't know the extent of it, and their motivations and their narratives by that are also. So in other words, they're relative to where and how they have others tied to her, and then with those tactics from other classrooms and with their, everyone talking behind people's backs. Hiding things from parents, and trying to make exceptions, trick people to make exceptions themselves so they can pretend it and blame all the things others ourselves, even when correctly. What was way worse and what was made more finite, because it also involves how apart from off campuses, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated is completely, originally, and still part of the equation /S. Part of the name's involvements. So former director of the FBI has recorded /hyper recorded ties to names where, I don't know if physically, I don't know if I ever met him, but like, for example, his co-defendants have roles with people directly and indirectly involved with predicate acts on and off the campuses in Wethersfield, on and off my childhood campus, as people also involved with the daughter of my principal at that when I was at the campus at that time. They involved with themselves, with judges and prosecutors, and people interbranch through time. People with the military, involved with like military police families, associated with Webb School, is also involved with sheriffs' families and or ties to them, all along, which is all along that route from Wells Road to Central Connecticut State University, on off Central Connecticut State University and Paul Manafort Drive. And CNN source the story with that is recorded and involved with them, with men and women of various different police forms and family members that have been slandering people, and roles with sequence shifts that are also simultaneously relevant as greater than and what is more finite than, while as they're what they would read as identity thefts and frauds and slanders. But it is greater than and more finite than, while as it, and with the other names. So in other words, former director of the FBI in his defendant capacities, and his lawyer Robert Chevalier also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, and confirmed involved with behavior crimes and with identity thefts and frauds with his co-defendants against me, and with as people that coordinated identity thefts and frauds instances intercities in Connecticut leading up to the World Trade Center attack, also as people involved with the Scalora family, involved with them with predicate acts on and off the and with wrongdoing on and off the World Trade Center attack location, and on and off the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it, right before the World Trade Center attack, as the same people from Connecticut. That's in Manhattan. And then that was proven. There was post-dated, partially proven. It was proven that there were post-dated documents that had been post-dated from inside the Ninth Circuit Court right before the World Trade Center attack had been hit. And they had presented to the panel of judges post-dated documents that they pretended were relate. You know, they show that they post-dated to make received late. So that led to delays. Like, for example, that led all the way out from the Trade Center attack to 2006. And I had already been trying to report what I'm trying to report to you now. And they didn't let me do that then. And so the people who didn't want me to do that then, they had to hide that, because they were also involved with a whole bunch of different. We have people that have cases. They have people that have gone to courts every day, and they wouldn't have been. They have people that bad things are happening too. It's not that the courts aren't the only victim. The police aren't the only victim. When we're mostly, a lot of times the people that are the perpetrators are the ones that they're more victim than sometimes than the police, the courts. Everyone's been dishonest since they've been kids, because our actually inherent active and progressive means, by sophistication, by truth, have been prevented free speech offensively, because people that have been valuing complete lies and delusions used as truth. They value how people would attack the Capitol like that, because they need to pretend that they could speak for the nature of the law. They can't even follow mandated law and respond to me online. Can't call the police. They'll fabricate audio and video transcripts. You're out of your mind. They already invested whole families criminally foreign influence since they were kids. We're in a trap. We're not one. We almost wrap. Follow mandated law for Wethersfield Interbranch now, and intercities, whether in Connecticut. Follow mandated law for them. They got They got people associated with main college campuses also involved with medical racketeering, all kinds of natures of racketeering, with people on and off Hartford Hospital, involved with the Leahy family and with the Lombardo families, involved with also drugs and medicines crimes with kids, and with sexual crimes with their sexual offenders of kids, as leaders of the kids, as roles with them, with other natures of crimes, from their uses of those locations, at triage locations. You have people that are really victims as real